Good morning! And we've now made it through 3 weeks of this virtual, 2.5 weeks actually, of this virtual semester here at Bergen Community College, the Com-100. Hope everybody is doing well on this Friday morning. And sorry for a little bit of a late start, but my daughter decided to wake me up at 4:05 this morning and never went back to sleep. So let's just say after I took her to pre-K, came home and took a serious 2 hour nap in the morning. So we're getting a little bit of a late start here this morning, but I wanted to go ahead and say great job for a lot of you on that exam. Really good job. Just a couple little hiccups here. People will sometimes confuse intra and interpersonal communication, and also, unfortunately, I gave you the review sheet to make you realize that these were the terms that were going to be on there. And I think a couple of you probably had another edition of the textbook than the 13th edition that we have. And yeah, you might have got some of the listening stages wrong. So, but that's all right, okay? Because nobody failed it. Nobody just, bombed on it. And because of how things have been going, that's why I wanted to give it to you open book. I mean, geez. We're doing very well. We're averaging about 20 students in each of your classes, and there's 5 Com-100s. About 20 students in each class is still with us. We're still going. You're going strong, okay? And I think that's very good in a time of this unprecedented emergency, this COVID emergency we're going through, and having to do everything virtually. Especially, like I said, this is something I've never done before. And speaking of that, we now transition into the next part of the semester. See, this course is broken up into different type of communication. We just now finished talking about communication theory, but now it's time to go into public speaking. And I am such an advocate for effective public speaking skills because this is one of those things that you never know. You never truly know when you're going to be called upon to have to get up and deliver a well-organized, well-prepared, and properly delivered speech. One that's not only listened to, but is also remembered. One of the things that, I love when students say this. They'll tell me, after this class, I'm never going to have to give a speech again. And you can never be more wrong about anything in your life. Okay? You just never know. I mean, it could be the distant future. Where, let's say you finish at Bergen, you go on to get your bachelor's degree, you get an entry-level position, you start to work regular for the first time in your life, you save up some money after a couple years, meet that special someone, you guys get married, have a few kids, and then you buy your dream house. Okay? Maybe up in a place like Hillsdale or Woodcliff Lake. All right? And you get this 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath, 2-car garage, okay? White picket fence, right across from an open field. You can take the kids over there, they can play. You take the dogs over there, you don't have to clean up the poop. Hey, life is good. But then all of a sudden the township you live in has now announced that, especially through your little online patch, as they like to call them, that your town is going to sell that land across the street from your house to a developer who wants to put in an 8-store strip mall anchored by a 24-hour 7-Eleven. Well, not only does your quiet neighborhood go out the window, but now your property value is going to go down. Well, before they do that, they're going to have a special session of the town hall meeting Monday at 7:30. And they're going to have this discussion. Well, for those who don't know, every town hall, every township in America, in New Jersey, in Bergen County, in America, is required by law once a month to have a town hall meeting. And during those town hall meetings, there's always an area set aside that is open to the public. Some call it an open mic. Even at Bergen once a month has their Board of Trustees meeting, and it's open to the public. And during that meeting, usually after they do roll call, they'll go ahead and say, okay, this is now the public session where anybody from the public can speak about anything. And of course, people will get up and they'll talk about a particular issue at the college, parking fees, or whatever it is they want to talk about, or especially a lot of the extra fees that you end up having to pay. People will definitely complain about that. But otherwise, it gives you an opportunity. So now let's take the scenario I built. Now you can get up and talk about that situation where a strip mall is going to go across from your house, and it's going to destroy your property values. You don't want to see that happen. Well, I've been to town hall meetings in 4 different states, and I've seen people get up and they'll be ill prepared, unorganized, and they'll just get up and just say, "What the hell's the matter with your sons of bitches? I didn't vote for you." And the next day, what do you think people are saying about that speech? "Man, did you hear old Lenny last night? Boy, was he angry. But did you listen to his message?" "Oh, I don't know about his message, but man, I ain't heard cussing like that in 40 years. But did you listen to his message?" "Oh, I don't know about his message, but boy, the EMT guy was right next to me. He thought Lenny was going to pass out and have a heart attack. He was going to pump his chest." But did you listen to his message? See, when you're ill-prepared and unorganized, your message goes in one ear and out the other. Yet I've also seen people who haven't had to give a speech in 30 years, get up in those same situations, give well-organized, well-prepared, and properly delivered speeches, and whether it's the next day, a week later, a month later, those speeches are still remembered. Now, to give you a very real situation where we've seen this happen, for those who may know, on Route 17 North in Mahwah, right near the border with New York State where the thruway is, you have that big, the Tara Hotel, the Sheraton, and you have the big plants where the Ford plant used to be. Up there, about 8 or 9 years ago, a developer decided he was going to build a brand new mall there. Almost comparable to, what's the one I'm thinking of? The Palisades Mall. Okay? Well, the citizens of Mahwah protested greatly because they knew, this is just going to bring so much traffic through our neighborhoods. We don't want it to happen. So the people of Mahwah, and I actually had a student whose parents were involved in this. About 2 years ago, I had this student. And people would get up at town meetings in Mahwah and speak out against it, and sure enough, it's been over 8 years since this was first announced, and they haven't broke ground on it yet. Okay? And that's just people like you, me, one of my students 2 years ago, her parents, okay, just getting up and delivering that speech. Or it could be the very near future. It could be the very next class you take right after you take my class, okay? Maybe a class where the professor actually knows how to work Moodle, and you'll send your speeches in that way, or the way you do it here with a YouTube account. But again, you never know. And many of the classes you take at Bergen do have a requirement where you have to give an oral presentation. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a science lab. Yet you now have to inform the class about what it is that you just did in your lab. Now, the interesting part is that when I talk about public speaking and how effective it can be and how you can be an effective public speaker, I talk about standing up in front of an audience, and that's a big reason why, like you see the way I'm standing right now. This way I can employ my gestures. Remember those things like complimenting and illustrating that were on your exam? Okay. But I can employ my gestures. But we're also virtual. And that's why, for example, in the past, when professors have had an online speech class and you had to give a speech that you had to send in via video, you were required to have like 3 or 5 people in the room with you, have like an audience. But I don't require that. And the reason why is I kind of hinted at this at the beginning of the semester, is I truly believe, and I've been talking to people in the private sector, this is the wave of the future. Okay? That when you're giving presentations, it's going to be virtual. One of the things that I've mentioned, I might have mentioned this before, but I know I talked about it over the weekend with people who are in the private sector. Boy, I tell you what, if there's one thing that people who run offices, run companies, one thing they can't stand doing is leasing office space. They feel it's just this tremendous waste of money. All right? And yet, since this COVID emergency started in March, when we started to shut down everything, well, if you work construction or a landscaper, or if you drove a truck delivering things, or you were a barmaid or bartender or waiter or waitress, yeah, you lost your jobs. But those who were in professional positions didn't. A lot of them kept working just like we're doing right now, just like I'm doing right now. And as this COVID emergency starts to lift, yeah, there's going to be times when you're going to, you have to go to the office, but there are going to be more times than not where you're going to work for a company with your bachelor's degree, your master's degree, or even just your associates, where you're not going to be required to have to be physically present at your place of business. You'll be able to do everything right here. And whether it's Zoom, whether it's WebEx, whether it's Google, I think has something, this is going to be the wave of the future. So when we start getting you ready in the next couple of weeks for your first formal speech, which is the informative speech, I do want you standing, because if you were in a crowd, if you were in an auditorium, and one of those things I don't like podiums. You'll never have to speak with a podium. And the reason why is that, sure, I've been teaching here at Bergen for almost 22 years. But I've spent a lot of time in the private sector also. And there are many places where you're delivering a speech and you simply don't have a podium. Okay? Now, when I say a speech, it doesn't have to be something like for a class or in my place of business. I'll give you a couple of great examples. Back in the early 2000s, when I first got my tenure at Bergen, I rented a house over in Fairlawn. And I guess because of my size and the way I looked back then, people recruited me into being in the neighborhood block watch. So now we're going to have a meeting. It was a Wednesday night at 7:30 down at the middle school. For those who know Fairlawn, it's the middle school that's down by where the pool is. So we met in the middle school library on Wednesday night at 7:30, about 15 to 20 people. And the Fairlawn police officer who's in charge of the neighborhood block watch came and he spoke with us. And he spoke with us for about 20 minutes. Now, as a speech professional, I'm going to tell you right now, I was very impressed. Because here's a guy, he's got to go into this room. And he's got 15 to 20 people. People who worked all day. People who have children and need to be back with their children. Who are, in their minds, you want to talk about some psychological noise. Who might be thinking about, are my kids doing their homework? Are they finishing their dinner? Are they getting ready for bed? Are they going to be in bed when I get home? There's all kinds of different things going on in their head. And yet this guy was well organized, well prepared, properly delivered his message, and he had the audience in the palm of his hand. I told him afterward I was super impressed. But that was a middle school library. There was no podium. So he just stood in front of us and he spoke. I'll give you another example. When I first got out of the Marine Corps in 1988, my youngest brother was 9 years old. And I'm like, oh man, I just got out of the Marine Corps. I don't have to get a job right away. I'm going to coach my brother's Little League baseball team. So I'm thinking, I'm coaching Little League baseball. All I got to do is stand at third base and say, all right, get a good swing. Oh, no. This was a time when all of this started with the contracts between the parents, the fans, and all the different things that you have to do, that you have to be aware of, with bullying and shouting and verbal abuse, and all that kind of stuff. So about once every 2 weeks on a Saturday morning, we would either have someone from the state or from the county who would come and have a discussion with us. Now, there'd be coaches, managers, umpires. There'd be about like 30 people on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m. when most of us had something else to do, like, mowing the lawn or fixing the gutters or whatever it is we had to do. And we weren't exactly in an auditorium. We were in, well, I guess you could say, what are those things called? A clubhouse. So we were sitting on, like, bags of dirt that were, for the infield. We're sitting on bags of dirt. We're taking buckets, turning them over, sitting on buckets. And then this guy would come in, and I'm going to tell you right now, some of those guys and women that came in and spoke with us were excellent because they kept our attention. See, these are the kind of places where you'll be doing a lot of your speeches. You're not going to always do a lot of formal speeches for a class in front of, this kind of thing. But in the workplace, I do think this is going to be the way of the future. And one of the things that's important is making sure you maintain eye contact. Okay? One of the things I got from a lot of people is, you look over to where maybe your screen is. Okay? So you're going over here and, hi, so let me tell you about my favorite vacation. No, you can't do that anymore. All right? For the informal speech, that was okay. But one of the things you want to focus on is I'm looking right above my head at the screen, and I can see the little light on where the camera is. And you want to keep your focus there as much as possible, because if you keep your focus there, then you give the people that you're speaking with at whatever meeting you have that's virtual, whether it's a WebEx meeting or a Zoom meeting, you give them the idea that you're looking directly at them. You don't think so? Go watch the news. Go watch Sports Center or something like that, where they're reading off the teleprompter. Now, the reason why they're reading off the teleprompter is to give you the idea that they're looking directly at you. All right? And that's why they do that. So you want to try as best you can to focus. Now, when you do your speeches, I'm not going to ask you to memorize your speeches. I never will. But you can have them here to the side. You can just reference it. You can have it here below you. You know, like one of the things I strongly recommend is when you do give your speech, yes, I want you standing, but maybe have a table. Or, in the case that I may do next week, where I'll put my device here on my dining room table and then stand on the other side. So if I needed to put something down, I could, but I still have you right in front of me. Okay? And I could still stand free and have the ability to employ my gestures. Okay? Because one of the things we got to remember about public speaking is you want to make sure that you're engaging your audience. All right? You want to make sure you're engaging your audience. Now, in order to give a good, effective speech, you know, one of the things that you have to remember is everybody gets nervous. As a matter of fact, in the early 90s, when I first started teaching public speaking, we had this, I remember it was the building at Indiana State. I was a grad assistant. And we had this little room where all these video cameras were. And we would take them on the tripods and take them to our classes when it was time for speech. As a matter of fact, students were required to buy the textbook and a videotape so we could videotape their speeches. But I found too many students that when they knew they were getting videotaped on their speech, as soon as they looked at that camera, saw that red light on, they froze. And that's understandable. And I think that happens also when it comes to Zoom or WebEx. When you see that little light go on your camera, everybody's watching me, and you freeze up. We don't want to do that. Okay? Everybody gets nervous before a speech. Now, I have spoken in front of a crowd as big as 8,000 people. And that's true. 1996, Summer Jam 2, a concert we hosted when I did morning radio. And, of course, in front of 8,000 people, yeah, I'm going to get a little nervous, of course. But there's no magic pill that you can swallow that once you swallow it dissolves all the butterflies in your stomach. I mean, they say there is. They call it ecstasy. But anyway, the best thing to do is to make sure that you practice your speech at least 3 times. Once you've completed it, you practice it at least 3 times. Now, I personally, when I give, and I'm always guaranteed to give not only lessons in the classroom, but I'm guaranteed to give at least 3, 4, maybe 5 speeches a year. For example, at the Veterans Day ceremony that we always hold at Bergen, I'm always the MC or I'm delivering a speech, and I know there's going to be a couple hundred people in the audience. I practice that speech at least 13 times to 15 times before I deliver it. And I'm the professional, all right? I'm not expecting you to just practice it that much, but do practice at least 3 times, okay? And also make sure, and we're going to talk more about this on Monday, make sure you gain great knowledge of the topic that you're talking about. One of the reasons why I love doing the informal speech is that I'll always get students who tell me how nervous they are public speaking, how nervous they are. Yet there were so many of you, who when you got to talking about your favorite vacation, your hobbies, or the reason why you chose your major, you got very animated. And why were you animated? Because you knew what you were talking about. Knowledge plus practice will make you a confident speaker every single time. Okay? It's always going to work that way. I'm going to let you go for the weekend. No assignment, no quiz. But come Monday, we're going to dive right into your assignment. Now remember, when we do have the speech assignment, and that's going to start in a couple weeks, we're going to give you a little while to get this all together and make sure you get it right. You are going to go ahead and videotape yourself, upload it to your YouTube account. And again, it's the best way to do it, people. Again, I've had students tell me just this semester now, in the last couple of weeks, when it wasn't their informal speech, it was too big, I couldn't send it, blah, 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 I couldn't upload it, it was too big. And I understand that happens to me a lot. Whether it's videos, pictures, I'll upload them into my computer, and it's like, 256 megabytes. I'm like, well, how the hell did it get that big? And then you can't send it. But at least with YouTube, no matter how you videotape yourself, when you upload it to YouTube, they store it, and then I just get the link. Now, we're going to talk about this for 2 weeks, and I'm going to keep saying it. When you send me the link, make sure it's not on private, but it's on the setting that says that anyone you send the link to can see it. All right? Or if you want to, just make it public until I see it, give you a grade, and then you can go ahead and take it down. All right? It's totally up to you. One more note before I let you go for the weekend. People, I'm still getting questions about things that either I explain in an email or I fully explain in a video. You've got to watch the videos and you've got to read my emails. Okay? Because I'm going to stop answering questions about something that if you read the email or see the video. Now, if I say something and you don't quite understand, yeah, I'll answer that. But when somebody says, hey, when's the due date for this? And it's clearly written on the assignment sheet. Or, hey, when is this going to be, when are we doing this? Or how do we do it? And it's clearly explained by me in the video. Come on. Come on. Help me out here, all right? So, Monday morning, we're going to dive into your assignment. So go enjoy your weekend. Great job on the exams. By the way, in case you didn't notice from the course outline, it's your only exam in this class. That's what I love about communication. All right, you guys, have a good one. We'll see you on Monday.